Hey Playas, how you doing? Welcome back to Playas Guide. This episode of Playas Guide is the long-awaited continuation, part 2 of the Nintendo 64 fighting games. So I think a completely fair assessment of the Nintendo 64 fighting games would be that there are not a lot of great games. There's some okay stuff and some not so great stuff, but there are a few good games. And in this video, I will tell you what my favorite N64 fighting game is. Starting off with Fighters Destiny 2. Now, this game has much improved graphics and music from the previous game. So if you're looking to play a Fighter's Destiny game, this is the one that you're going to want to play. Now it has a slower pace than the first game, but more fluid controls, still lacks the combos, and only has simple A and B button combinations from what I can tell. I didn't play a ton of this one either, but I wasn't as compelled to. Now, the point system, you can get some easy wins. There's some easy A and B throws to get those wins. And there is some familiar characters. There's one, D-Dog, which reminds me a lot of Dennis Rodman. I don't remember him from the first game. But still, I like that character. Flying Dragon. Now, when I found out about this game's a little bit more uncommon than a lot of these other games I've mentioned. But it's one that you'll still be able to come across and won't have to pay too much for. Now, there was a Flying Dragon on the NES, and that's what comes to mind when I hear Flying Dragon. Now, I could be mistaken. There could be an anime series or something. There most likely is that this is based on. But what I'm most familiar with is the Nintendo Entertainment System game. Now, there's two modes to this game. There's a 2D and a 3D. There's not much of a difference. Other than the camera waves around a lot more in the 3D. So you got two more options here, the SD hero and the virtual hero. And the SD is like a cartoon version with easier controls. I found this one a little bit more enjoyable myself, and I liked the art style a bit more of this one. The virtual one, I wasn't as much of a big fan of. You can tell that it's trying to be a more serious and competitive fighting game, but it doesn't come across as a very good one. Mace is a fighting game that incorporates swords in it, and it has a bit of a medieval theme, although there are some oriental characters in the game. It has a lot of interesting characters. There is some blood. It's a 3D fighter. It has combos, solid controls. As far as I could tell, the combos aren't, they don't get up there in terms of how many hits. They don't get too high. And I couldn't pull off any specials. I pulled off some interesting moves, but nothing that I would think that would qualify as a special. I mean, I didn't put a lot of time into playing this game. I had to play through every N64 fighting game, so I couldn't figure out how to pull off specials. If you know how to, please let me know in the comments below. But the game looks pretty good. I mean, it's on the N64, and a lot of these polygon games didn't age that well, but this one's not too bad, and it also sounds good. Now, this is an affordable game, so if you're looking to pick it up, it's decent. I got not too many complaints here, so I would recommend picking this one up if you can find it. It shouldn't be too hard to find, and like I said, it is pretty affordable. Ina was a TV series in the late 90s, and it was also a video game on the Nintendo 64. It was a fighting video game. When I first saw this, I didn't think it was going to be a fighting video game, but I played it, and it's a lot of sword fighting here. The controls are actually pretty good, mostly taking advantage of the C buttons, and it has a lot of characters, if not all of the main characters that I'm sure people who watch this show would be familiar with in the game. It is an uncommon game on N64, but you will be able to find it. You probably won't have to play too much for it. You just might not see it as frequently as some of these other games. War Gods. This is another one of these fighters with these random monster characters, and I love it. I like that. I mean, the game's not great, but it's like, there's some B movies that are sort of like cult classics. Now, I wouldn't call this any sort of a cult classic, but if you like playing some of those more obscure random video games, this might be a good one to pick up. It's, fairly common, and you're not going to pay a lot for it. The gameplay, they're trying to be similar to Mortal Kombat here, so that's what you should expect. The finishers are definitely not as good, neither are the controls or any of that, but they're not terrible. Now, the game doesn't seem all that balanced. There's definitely some, something strange going on with how overpowered some of these characters are, like CY5 and Anubis. And then there's a Pagan. Now, this is clearly a stripper in a dance club. And this game was made by Midway. So, I mean, it's half decent and it's entertaining, but it's not the greatest game. Mortal Kombat 4. Now, Mortal Kombat 4 had a 1-on-1 or a 2-on-2. The 64-bit graphics don't have as much impact with the gore and the fatalities as the 16 and 32-bit graphics on the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and on the arcade and other forms of the first three games had. It didn't really transition well into the 3D realm at first. You have to understand that these early 3D games in general, not just fighters, really paved the way for what the future of gaming would be. It was actually quite the historic time looking back in gaming. But, I mean, some of this stuff doesn't look too great now and hold up to the test of time. Now, there were some new characters that were introduced into Mortal Kombat 4. Rico, Jarek, Kai, Fujin, Quan Chi, and Chinook, who stand out as the three most significant characters that would carry on throughout the franchise and have significant roles in some of the other games and storylines and plots that went along with them. There's also Tanya and a hidden character, Meat, who, you would be able to play as in a few of the other games or would be available as a skin. This game introduced weapons into Mortal Kombat, or at least the use of weapons amongst all characters. The PS1 version, if you were a Sony kid, you got cutscenes. And this version is actually considered to be the better version. So if you're going to go out and buy Mortal Kombat 4, this one's not too hard to find, but it's a little bit more expensive on this list because this game is somewhat desirable. My favorite fighting game on the N64 is Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Now, when you hear Mortal Kombat Trilogy, you might be thinking to yourself, I'm going to get Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3. Wrong. This Mortal Kombat is Mortal Kombat 3. This is like the second rendition of it, though, because there was Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. This is Mortal Kombat Trilogy, which came after that. So this game is Mortal Kombat 3. The graphics are stepped up here. This game introduced brutalities. It also had an aggressor bar, which would make your character speed up and pull off some moves faster once you filled up that word aggressor in the bottom corner of your screen. And you know, it's a Mortal Kombat. It's Mortal Kombat 3. It's a great game, great controls, great combos. You can't really say too many bad things about this game because it's a classic fighting game. And I would highly recommend picking this one up. It is, you know, not going to be the cheapest game on this list. I mean, aside from Sculptor's Cut, this one or Killer Instinct Gold are probably going to be second and third place price wise. I guess Mortal Kombat 4 is maybe in that same boat. So yeah, this is my favorite fighting game on the N64. It had a 2-on-2 mode, and it also had 8-player Mortal Kombat. Now that was only on the N64. I'm sure the Sega Saturn and the PlayStation versions were better. I don't recall if I've played those or not. I've played a decent amount of this game. But yeah, this is definitely, you know, the game that you're going to get the bang for your buck if you're looking to add a good solid fighting game to your N64 collection. Pick up Mortal Kombat Trilogy. And unfortunately, it's not going to be all 3 games like you probably would assume by the name. I guess it's a little bit deceptive. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Playas Guide. And if you haven't checked out the previous episode, Fighting Games Part 1, I'll put a link to that at the end of the video for you to check out. If you're a retro gamer and collector or either, we want to make Playas Guide your source for retro gaming. So please give Playas Guide a sub. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter and on Twitch, where we have a team of highly talented and entertaining retro streamers. And we're working towards having a stream every day of the week with different retro gaming content for you to tune into. Until next time, keep it retro. Later, players.